Alright, so we got a print on the failures of the original ejector, and this is how to improve it for the next generation. This is untested. I'm going to record the first install, see if I know what we're doing. Basically, we're putting a larger motor on with hopefully a better clamping system to keep the gear on the motor. The motor itself has a much stronger shaft, so hopefully it won't get wallered out as quickly. Another thing we're doing is taking the gear off the front and moving this to the back. In order to facilitate that, we need to mount the motor towards the back, which we're using this clamp to mount it to the side of the 30/30 rail. Get this guy off real quick. Hello. In order to make it the front bed removal more easily, we're using a 5/16 shaft collar, which needs a 3/32 set screw, so I have to get out my English tools. I'm going to stick that guy on flush. You'll see that is pretty much the same size. This is just being held on by a set collar, or a set screw, just a shaft collar. You don't need a lot of force on it, so it shouldn't cause problems. I'm taking the screws off to facilitate putting a new bed on as well. That's the only reason that's off. Motor gets mounted in here. Thus, so it'll be like that. Now we get some decent play out of the system. So we can easily tighten the gears. With these slots so you can put a screw in the front to hold the motor locked in place. The motor gear is this guy. So we should still be able to access these guys at least. Order of operations, we need to get these screws in first. And the motor mounted. These are 12mm M5 screws with some post insert 30mm T-nuts. This will allow to mount the motor back in here. Should be alright. We're going to mount this guy first on the rear. The ejection still happens when the bed is up front. I'm actually going to put these screws back in so I can flip this around. Or remove them again later for the bed. Actually, no, let's take the bed out of the way so it'll be easier to see what's going on. So I'll just collect the screws. Okay. So the bed ejection position is still right here. The motor is going to be mounted in the slot right here. Is that easy enough to see? We're doing alright. So where along the shaft do we mount it? Well, so that the gears line up pretty well. Remembering that the bed needs to come back this way. Let's say about right here is the right spot. There's a bunch of goo in my belt. The belt itself is extremely loose. That is going to need addressing. Shaft is in good shape, but wow, looks like the belt has become detensioned. It's an easy fix on the Mini, but disturbing that it's that loose. Yeah. Still way too loose, so I'm gonna have to go in and put some more tension on that. Anyway, right now, mostly a fit test, make sure everything actually fits in the hole that was designed to fit in. It's certainly looking good so far. get some 12mm screws instead of the 10s. This is just such a tight spot that it's going to be a bit of a pain to get things in the first place. And so we have 2 set screws on there. I think I do want to move the motor backwards just a bit more. I can't actually tighten that on until I hook up some power and run the motor a little. Clamps the motor in place. I think what I'm learning is that the 10mm screws are not quite enough. There are 12s everywhere. The 12s are blue, so you can tell them apart. But there's no real difference. And there's little square notches on the bottom of this part to hold the nuts in place. And then the friction against the plastic should keep them clamped in there pretty well. It does have the fronts open, so you can get a wrench on half of a nut. But I kind of feel like when you got 3 of them in there, it's not going to be a big deal. There's not a huge amount of force trying to eject this motor anyways. Really the only thing is while it's running. Alright, so before tightening that down, does the motor engage well? I think that's pretty good. And don't have to clamp it all the way. We're just using friction fits here, so. Alright. Good deal. We got clearance. Got good lock on the fast part of the gears. It's still much too loose for my liking, so let's take a look at that. I think we must have slipped some teeth on there. So, to tighten the gears on here, or to tighten the belt on this guy, you relieve tension on the tensioner. Definitely don't want it all the way off. Then I'm going to give it 2 more teeth and literally just slide the belt out of its slot back in. And I think maybe 3 more teeth is the right answer. There's not a lot of lock forcing this in place. There's not a lot of room for it. So this end is coming right up against the blocks. I don't know if there's really a better thing to do. One thing is to make sure that your little bowline strings don't get underneath and into the motor in the first place. And make sure you do not over tension it. That's goodness. There we go. Flip over here. These wires can be passed underneath. Wired up correctly. I'll clean up the wiring, but kind of on a roll here, so I feel like I might as well assemble it and try some printing. Big thing is making sure everything is nice and clean. Alright, so new thick PET belt. This is, I think, 0.05 inch. We're just going to pop him right on there. No changes in the belt path or the belt management. It's pretty good. It's not really interested in bending as much as the other belt, but nothing new. All the way in. Should be able to slide right. Oh yeah. It is a tight fit. That's kind of on purpose. That's pretty nice. Start some prints.